Hey, welcome back. So last time we got the complete map of the axial skeleton, the skull, the spine, and the rib cage. But today we're taking all that knowledge off the page and putting it to work in the real world. We're going to connect these bones to actual clinical practice, and you'll see how those abstract names turn into powerful tools you'll actually use. Does this sound familiar? You've been staring at diagrams for hours, trying to cram every last bone and bump into your brain, but it just won't stick. You're not alone. So many of us fall into that trap of just memorizing a long list of names completely disconnected from what they actually do. It feels totally overwhelming, right? Well, don't worry, there's a much better way to learn this stuff. And that's exactly what we're here to do. Think of this as building a bridge from the textbook right to the patient's bedside. When you start connecting each part of the axial skeleton to its real-world clinical importance, you stop just memorizing. You start understanding. And trust me, that's the real secret to making this knowledge stick for good. So how are we going to build that bridge? Simple. We're going to do it in 3 key steps. First, we'll get hands-on with the anatomy to really lock it in physically. Then, we'll dig into the clinical connection, the why behind every bone. And finally, I'm going to share some proven techniques to make sure all this information sticks. Ready? Let's get started. All right, let's dive into our first section, hands-on identification. The goal here is pretty straightforward. We want to move this knowledge out of the book and into your muscle memory. This is all about active learning, so if you've got an anatomical model or even just an atlas nearby, now is the time to grab it. Okay, let's start with the skull. Go ahead and point to the frontal bone. Right, that's your forehead. Now feel the top and sides of your head. Those are the 2 parietal bones. Now the sides, right by your ears, you got it. Those are the temporal bones. And at the very back of your head is the occipital bone. Perfect. Okay, let's trace the spine. Start at your neck, that's the 7 cervical vertebrae. Follow that down your back to the 12 thoracic vertebrae. That's where your ribs attach. And finally, in your lower back, feel those 5 big, sturdy lumbar vertebrae. Last up, the rib cage. Trace a few of your ribs with your fingers and find that flat bone right in the center of your chest. That's your sternum. And here is a pro tip that seriously makes a huge difference. As you point to each bone, say its name out loud. Frontal bone, cervical spine. This super simple action engages multiple senses at once: touch, sight, and hearing. And that creates way stronger pathways in your brain for memory. I know, it might feel a little weird at first, but believe me, it absolutely works. Okay, now that we have a real physical feel for these bones, let's get to the most important part, the clinical connection. This is the why. You see, understanding why a doctor needs to know the exact location of the temporal bone is what changes everything. It takes you from just memorizing facts to having deep functional knowledge. This table really brings it all together, connecting the structure to the risk. Let's start at the top, the frontal bone. It protects the front part of your brain. So a fracture there isn't just a cracked bone, it's a potential brain injury. Now look at the temporal bone. A hard hit to the side of the head can cause sudden dizziness or hearing loss. Why? Because you're messing with the delicate inner ear structures housed right there. Moving down to the spine, a cervical injury is so critical because it can damage the spinal cord, which can affect literally everything from the neck down. And with the rib cage, you can see the danger immediately. A broken rib might seem simple, but a sharp piece can puncture a lung. That's why knowing this anatomy is life or death in an emergency room. So let's be really clear about what we mean by this. Clinical relevance is that essential bridge. It takes you from just being able to point to a bone on a chart to truly understanding what it does and what happens to a patient when things go wrong. It's the context that gives anatomy all of its meaning and its power. All right, let's make sure everything we've just covered is locked in for the long haul. In our final section, we're going to go over a few tried and true techniques to help you hold on to this information, not just for your next test, but for your entire career. And the best part is, you can start using these today. First up, visual mnemonics. Don't just look at the skull bones. In your mind, picture them as interlocking puzzle pieces clicking together. Next is chunking. The axial skeleton seems like a lot, but we've already chunked it for you into 3 bite-sized sections: skull, spine, and ribcage. Just focus on mastering one before you move to the next. Third, and this one is a game changer, is repetition. Seriously, a quick 10 or 15-minute review every day builds lasting memory way better than one long cram session. And finally, the ultimate test of your knowledge. Teach it to someone else. Try explaining the clinical risk of a sternum fracture to a friend. If you can teach it, you really know it. I really want you to let this idea sink in for a second. It's time for a mindset shift. Anatomy isn't just some hurdle you have to get over. It is the solid foundation that all of your future medical knowledge is going to be built on. When you understand the why, that clinical relevance, you're not just memorizing facts anymore. You're learning the actual language of the human body. So, we have built a really solid foundation with the body's central core. Next time, we're going to branch out, literally, to the appendicular skeleton. We'll get into the arms, the legs, and the girdles that connect them all to the core. And I'll show you a simple, effective way to tackle all of it. And that's it. That is the power of connecting the what with the why. You haven't just memorized the axial skeleton, you've actually started to understand it like a clinician. The core is mastered. So the only question left is, are you ready for the limbs? I'll see you next time.